His hands are in my hair, tangled, fisted, desperate, like a man trying to grip the one rope keeping him from the drop. Dante presses me against the penthouse glass, 50 floors above the city's wet, neon-bled arteries, and I feel every inch of his desperation transfer through the cold pain at my back. I don't care about the Empire anymore. His voice cracks on the last word. Cracks. The most feared alpha in this city, fracturing against my collarbone like he's 17 and terrified. I let my fingers graze his chest, slow, deliberate, purposeful, and I watch his amber eyes lose their last thread of reason. I'm divorcing Vittoria tonight, he breathes. I'll burn the whole pack down. Just stay. I pull him close. I press my mouth to his, and against his lips, soft as a verdict. I whisper it. Do it for us. He leaves. The door clicks shut behind him, and my smile drops. Gone. Clean as a scalpel. I wipe my mouth with the back of my hand, pull a burner phone from the lining of my coat, and dial without looking at the screen. 3 rings. The target took the bait. A pause. Prepare the foreclosure. The burner phone goes dark in my hand. I set it down on the marble countertop, and for a long moment I just stand there, looking at the city through the glass. 50 floors of rain-soaked neon below me. 50 floors of everything he built, everything I'm going to take. But the city doesn't feel like a prize right now. Right now, it just looks like the rain-slicked border road where I was 20 years old and dying in the mud. And I let myself go back there. I have to. I let myself go back because the day I stop feeling it is the day I get sloppy. The neighborhood we grew up in didn't have a name anyone was proud of. It sat on the fringe of the territory like a bruise that wouldn't heal, pressed between the pack's clean corporate skyline and the raw, unwashed edge of the Syndicate's eastern corridors, chain-link fences, cracked pavement that hummed with something old and wrong under your boots, convenience stores with bulletproof partitions and hand-painted prices. That was where I found Dante Ferraro, and stupidly, furiously, completely, I loved him there. He was 22. I was 20. We were both rogues, packless, rankless, no alpha blood to carry us, no family name to open doors. What we had instead was each other. He used to say that like it was enough. He'd lean against the railing of the fire escape outside my apartment, a half-eaten carton of cold noodles balanced on his knee, and look at the glittering skyline like he was measuring it, like it owed him something. We're going to be up there one day, he'd say. I believed him. That's the part that still costs me something, even now. Not the love itself, the belief. I believed Dante Ferraro so completely, so without architecture or condition, that I handed him the blueprint of every soft place inside me. And he memorized it all, not because he loved me, because one day he would need to know exactly where to aim. I remember the night the old Alpha summoned him. Rennick, the pack's reigning boss. He wasn't elegant. He wasn't the sharp, bespoke-suited corporate predator Dante would eventually become. Rennick was blunt and broad and built like someone had been angry at the world for 60 years and decided to put it all into one body. He ran the territory the old way. Fear. Absolute, generational, suffocating fear. When his men came to the apartment at 2 a.m, 4 of them in tactical gear with weapons already drawn, I reached for the knife on my nightstand. Dante's hand caught my wrist before I got there. Don't. Just that. Just don't. He looked at me then, and I read something in his face that I told myself was reassurance. I told myself it was us, still us, always us. I was wrong. He went alone to the meeting. He came back 3 hours later with the offer on the table and a decision already calcified behind his amber eyes. I didn't know it yet. I was sitting on the kitchen counter in his jacket, drinking cold coffee, waiting. He stood in the doorway. The city light came through the window behind him and turned him into a silhouette, into something I couldn't quite read. "Rennick wants to give me the crown," he said. My coffee cup stopped halfway to my mouth. The Pack Alpha title. Everything. His voice was flat. The rank, the empire, the accounts. The silence stretched between us like a wire pulled too tight. There's a condition. I already knew. Something in my body knew before my brain caught up, the way animals sense a shift in pressure before the storm actually breaks. He wants me to marry Vittoria. There it was, Vittoria Rennick, the Alpha's daughter, raised in that empire like a crown is raised in velvet, shaped and polished and designed for exactly one purpose, to be worn by whoever would serve the pack best. I set my cup down. I heard the ceramic tap against the counter. I heard my own breathing, and I looked at the man I loved and waited for him to tell me he'd refused. I waited for the next sentence. I told him I needed to think. Not know, not the sharp, territorial fury of someone protecting what belongs to them. I needed to think. I slid off the counter. "Dante, Sloane, tell me you said no." The silence that answered me was the loudest thing that had ever happened in that kitchen. He didn't say no. He didn't say anything. And I understood then, in the way you understand a fall. Not when your foot leaves the ledge, but when the ground arrives. I walked out. I told myself I was giving him space to say the right thing. I told myself he'd follow me. I got 3 blocks before Rennick's men caught me on the border road. There were 4 of them, or the same 4 from the apartment. They didn't say a word, not a threat, not a command. They just started. The first hit came from behind, and the pavement rushed up to meet my cheek so fast that the cold registered before the pain did. Cold, wet, then the pain. I fought. I want you to know that. I want you to hold on to that. I fought like someone who had every reason to live. I got one of them by the throat, got my elbow across another one's jaw, hard enough to feel the crack travel all the way up into my shoulder socket. But 4-1 is arithmetic, not a fight. And eventually the arithmetic wins. They left me at the territory border. No instruction, no message. They didn't need to explain it. The message was the location. Past this line, you don't exist in this world anymore. I lay face down on the wet asphalt. The rain coming down in sheets that drummed against the back of my neck. And I remember thinking with startling, absurd clarity, my jacket is ruined. That's the thought that came. Not Dante. Not what happens now. Just, the jacket is ruined. Your brain does that sometimes. It offers you something small to hold, because the large thing will kill you if you look at it directly. I couldn't move my left arm. My ribs had opinions about breathing. The city lights made a blurred watercolor smear above me through the rain. All that neon, all that height and wealth and power I'd watched from the fire escape, while a man I loved told me we'd be up there one day. I thought about dying. Not dramatically. Not cinematically. I just thought about it. The way you'd think about putting down a bag you've been carrying too long. And then I heard footsteps. Quiet. Deliberate. Not the boots of Rennick's men. Something else. He crouched beside me. He didn't touch me. He didn't introduce himself. He simply turned his face toward mine, and even through the rain and the blood blurring my vision, I saw the eyes first. Crimson, not red like anger or violence. Crimson like something ancient and expensive and terrifyingly patient. "You're not going to die here," he said. His voice had no heat in it, no warmth at all, just certainty, the way a mathematician states a proof. "I'm Bastion." I didn't know the name then. I would. He let the silence run for a moment, watching me with those impossible eyes, the rain coming down between us like a curtain. Neither of us moved to push aside. "I've been watching the territory for some time," he said. "I saw what they did. I saw who stood in the window and watched." Something sharp twisted in my chest. He reached into his coat and produced a white handkerchief. Not offered out of sentiment, just practicality, clean fabric against the cut above my eye. "I have a proposition." Of course he did. Of course this beautiful, terrifying, rain-soaked stranger crouched over a dying girl on the border road had a proposition. Even then, bleeding and broken and 30 seconds from unconsciousness, something in me thought, this is a negotiation. I need to be sharp. "You survived tonight," he said. "You spend the next 5 years becoming something that doesn't get left for dead on border roads." A pause. "And when you're ready, you come back. And in exchange," he almost smiled. Not with warmth, with recognition, like he'd confirmed something he'd already suspected about me. "You take the city from Dante Ferraro," he said, "and when you do, the Vampire Syndicate gets the eastern corridors, the offshore routing accounts, and the harbor logistics contracts." The rain kept falling. My ribs kept arguing. My left arm was something I'd deal with later. I looked at this stranger, this pale, silver-haired, crimson-eyed creature who had found me at my absolute lowest point and brought not comfort, not pity, but a business proposal, and I felt something shift inside my chest that had nothing to do with the broken ribs, something that had been soft and bleeding, going quiet, going still, going cold. "Help me up," I said. He did. And that was the deal. 5 years. I won't make you live through all of it, but I'll tell you what those years cost. Because you need to understand the currency before you understand the price. Bastion put me in front of doctors who asked no questions. He put me in rooms with financial architects who taught me how money moves through shadow accounts, how to launder leverage, how to make a wire transfer disappear so thoroughly that no forensic accountant on Earth could find the bones. He put me in front of lawyers and strategists and brutal, unsentimental women who had already done what I was planning to do and walked out clean on the other side. He never let me be soft again. Not once. He wasn't cruel about it. He was simply clear. Every time I started to feel something that wasn't useful, he'd look at me with those crimson eyes and say, with no inflection at all, "Is this productive?" It took me 2 years to stop hating him for it. It took me 2 more to understand it was the most honest thing anyone had ever done for me, because Dante had been soft with me. Dante had looked at me with warmth and told me I was his. And then he stood in a window and watched his alpha's men take me apart on a border road. Warmth was not the protection it advertised. Cold was. So I learned cold. I learned how to walk into a room and let the temperature drop. I learned how to listen to a man talk about his own empire and hear the structural weaknesses in every sentence. I learned patience. That one took the longest. 3 months ago, I came back. 3 months ago, I came back. And I want to tell you what that looked like. Because came back makes it sound simple, makes it sound like a woman walking through a door. It was nothing like that. It was a performance. Every inch of it choreographed, rehearsed, pressure-tested against every variable I could anticipate. The clothes, the car, the building I chose to be seen leaving. The precise engineered moment our eyes met across the lobby of the Verano Hotel at a charity fundraiser that I knew, because Bastion's intelligence network knew. Dante Ferraro attended every third Thursday of the month. I wore the black trench coat over the backless gown. I wore the ice blue contacts I no longer needed because 5 years had sharpened my features into something my 20-year-old face had only suggested. I didn't approach him. That was the most important rule. I let him find me. And he did, within 11 minutes. I felt him before I saw him, that particular frequency of attention. So the way a room reorganizes itself around a man who is used to being the most dangerous thing in it. I turned, and there he was. Older, the charcoal suit, the unbuttoned collar, the amber eyes carrying the particular exhaustion of a man who has held power long enough to understand what it costs. He stared at me like I was something he'd misplaced and given up mourning. Like finding me was a grace he hadn't prayed for because he'd decided he didn't deserve it. Sloane. Just my name. Wrecked. I let 3 full seconds pass before I answered. Dante. And the long con began. That was 3 months ago. Tonight is the Callaway Gala, the PAC's annual showcase of wealth and order and controlled brutality dressed in designer clothes. 800 people in a hall built to make you feel the weight of the PAC's reach, its money, its teeth. Chandeliers that cost more than most apartments, black marble floors polished to a mirror, finish that catches and doubles every light source until the room feels like it's burning quietly. Security at every entrance, Dante's men, hulking, tactical-geared enforcers in earpieces, hands clasped in front of them, eyes moving in slow professional sweeps that miss very little. And somewhere in this building, Vittoria. I've studied her for months through Bastion's intelligence reports, through surveillance photographs, through the detailed account of every person who has ever worked for her and lived to describe the experience. She is not what Dante told me she was when he finally broke down and spoke of her, cold, political, indifferent. She is a predator with a different methodology. Where Dante uses force of presence, Vittoria uses patience and placement. She positions people. She arranges rooms. She walks into a space already knowing where every exit is, who is loyal, who is leveraged, and who is 3 weeks from becoming a liability she'll need to address. She has survived 11 assassination attempts in 4 years. Not through luck, through the particular genius of a woman who never goes anywhere without already knowing how it ends. I respect her. I need to remember that I respect her, because respect is the correct fuel for the level of caution she requires. Tonight she is somewhere in this building with her own private detail, and I am here with Dante's hand pressed low against the back of my gown, steering me through the crowd like I'm something he owns and is afraid of losing simultaneously, which is exactly how I need him to feel. The gala runs its first hour without incident. Dante moves through his pack like a man doing the math of obligation, greeting generals, accepting deference, laughing at things that aren't funny because laughter is a currency in rooms like this. I stay close enough to signal possession, far enough to let him feel the slight, constant anxiety of distance. It's a calibration. Everything with him is a calibration. We're in the East Corridor, a wide gallery-style hallway lined with dark oil paintings of Alpha's past, when his phone vibrates. He looks at the screen. Something changes in his face, not dramatically, just a tightening around the jaw, a micro-compression of his expression that I've learned to read the way you learn to read weather. "She's here," he says. He doesn't specify. He doesn't need to. Which entrance? Main floor. With her detail. 6 enforcers, according to Bastion's intelligence, all of them loyal specifically to Vittoria, not to the pack, not to Dante, to her personally, the way you're loyal to someone who knows enough about you to destroy you and has chosen not to. Yet, Dante's hand finds my wrist. We need to move. I let him pull me. I let him make the decisions about direction and speed and urgency, because that's what he needs right now, to feel like he's protecting something. What he doesn't know is that I already know this building's layout in precise detail. Every supply corridor, every service entrance, every room that locks from the inside. I already know exactly where we're going. I just let him think he's leading. The supply closet is off the secondary catering corridor behind the main ballroom. Narrow, black, the smell of industrial cleaning product and stored linen, and the faint, warm ghost of whatever was served at last year's gala. Dante pulls the door shut behind us, and the light vanishes entirely. I can hear the gala through the wall, muffled, distant, the low orchestral murmur of wealth celebrating itself, and I can hear his breathing. Close, closer than the dark room requires. His hand is still on my wrist. He hasn't let go. How long? I keep my voice to less than a whisper. Until her sweep clears this corridor. A pause. 10 minutes, maybe 15. 15 minutes in the dark with Dante Ferraro's chest 3 inches from mine, and his thumb moving in a slow, unconscious arc against the inside of my wrist. This is the part they don't tell you about long cons. The proximity, the sustained, so physical reality of being close to the person you are dismantling. I built my armor for distance. I built it for negotiations and surveillance photographs and wire transfers and cold transactional conversations in well-lit rooms. I built it for everything except this, the dark and the warmth of him and the specific weight of his hand, which I remember. My body remembers things my mind has filed away under irrelevant. I note this. I file it under manage. And I manage. Outside in the corridor beyond the door, boots, tactical, measured, professional, unhurried. Vittoria's details sweeping the secondary halls. Dante goes completely still. His hand moves from my wrist to my jaw, and I understand a half-second before it happens. His palm covers my mouth, gentle, firm. His lips find my ear, and the words are less than breath, less than sound, just shaped air. Don't move. The boots slow outside the door. Stop. A pause that stretches like pulled wire. I count it. 1, 2, 3. They move on. The footsteps recede down the corridor, and the sound of the gala reasserts itself through the wall, and Dante's hand drops from my face. But he doesn't step back. He stays exactly where he is. close enough that I can feel the controlled, deliberate effort of his breathing against my hair. She's going to find out. His voice is raw in a way it never is in public. I know. When she does, I know, Dante. Sloane. The way he says my name in this particular darkness is a different register than any other version of it. It carries weight it has no right to carry anymore. I'm not going to let her touch you. And there it is, that line, that specific, devastating line that I have been engineering him toward for 3 months. The moment where his protective obsession reaches the pitch, where it stops being emotion and starts being actionable, where it becomes something I can use. I let the silence run for 4 full seconds. I let him stand in it. Then I tilt my head up toward where his face is in the dark, and I say it quietly, with precisely the right proportion of fear and trust. Promise me. He exhales like something in him gives way. I promise. Done. We emerge from the corridor 8 minutes later when his lieutenant signals the sweep has passed. I smooth the front of my gown. Dante straightens his jacket. We walk back into the gala separately, 2 minutes apart, like professionals, like people who have done this before. But I feel it now, the change in the room's temperature toward me, because Vittoria saw us. Not together, not in any way that constitutes evidence, but she saw me. I know this because Vittoria Rennick does not look at things casually. She processes. And as I cross the black marble floor toward the bar, I feel the weight of those toxic green eyes tracking my path with the patience of someone who is taking notes, who has already decided that I am a variable that requires resolution. I pick up a glass of something cold and pale from the bar without looking at it. I take one measured sip. Across the room, 40 feet of black marble and 800 oblivious people between us. Vittoria raises her own glass. Not toward me. Not obviously, just a slight, controlled elevation, an acknowledgement. From one woman who understands the room, to another. She knows, not the details, not the scope. But she knows there is a game being played in her house, and she is telling me without a single word, without crossing a single step of that floor, she intends to win it. I hold her gaze for exactly 3 seconds, then I turn away first. In calculation, because Vittoria is the one variable in this entire architecture that I have not yet resolved. She is the locked room at the end of the corridor, and I need her to believe for just a little while longer that I haven't found the key. She intends to win it. Let her. Every predator reveals its methodology when it believes it's hunting. Vittoria's tell, and it took me 6 weeks of observation to isolate it, is that she moves on threats directly. Confrontationally, she doesn't let problems fester. She excises them. Which meant that as long as she saw me as a threat, she could excise. She wasn't looking at me as the architect of something already 3/4 complete. I drained the rest of my glass, set it down clean on the bar, and walked back into the gala to do the next hour's work. The bedroom is on the 43rd floor of his private tower. Not the penthouse, that's for meetings, for the theater of power, for the curated version of Dante Ferraro that the pack is permitted to see. The 43rd floor is where he actually lives. Lower ceilings than the penthouse. Warmer lighting. A bookshelf along the east wall that he never references in public because vulnerability, in his world, is a liability. He reads history, specifically the history of empires that collapsed from within. I noticed that the first time he brought me here, and I haven't stopped thinking about it since. Either he knows what hubris costs and believes he's immune to it, or he studies the warning signs the way some people study weather, convinced that awareness alone is protection. He is wrong about that. Tonight, the city sprawls beyond the floor-to-ceiling glass in its usual grid of light and rain, and Dante is at the bar cart in the corner pouring 2 glasses of something dark and expensive, and I am arranged on the edge of the bed in the way I have learned he finds most disarming, not seductive. That's not the register that reaches him tonight. Tonight I need to reach the part of him that is guilty, the part that still sees me at 20 on a border road, the part that has never stopped bleeding from what he did and has decided that proximity to me is the closest thing to a bandage he can apply. He crosses the room and hands me a glass. I take it with both hands. I look up at him instead of at the glass. That's the detail. That's the thing that costs him something every time. I look at him like he's the room, like he's the only fixed point. He sits on the bed beside me. 4 inches of space between us, which for Dante Ferraro is the equivalent of restraint displayed publicly. We drink in silence for a moment. The city breathes rain against the glass, and then I let my eyes drop to my hands around the glass, and I let the quiet carry a weight he'll feel compelled to fill. He does. Vittoria's detail flagged the east corridor on their sweep. I know. A pause. She's going to push harder now. I know that, too. I keep my voice level. Low, the register of someone who is afraid but has learned to carry it quietly rather than display it, which is exactly the version of me that triggers every protective instinct he has. Dante, I'm handling it. Are you? The question lands without accusation. I make sure of that. It lands like concern, like someone asking not because they doubt him, but because they need to hear it confirmed from his own mouth. He sets his glass down on the nightstand. What does that mean? It means I take a slow breath. I set my own glass beside his. Your generals. Silence. Caspar and Renault were in the east corridor 2 minutes before Vittoria's sweep. I keep my eyes on my hands. They weren't running security. They were watching me. They were doing their jobs. Dante. I finally look at him. Caspar looked at me the way men look at problems they are deciding whether to report. This is the part that required the most engineering. Not the lie itself. I have told Dante 1,000 calibrated half-truths over 3 months, and he has accepted all of them because the emotional architecture I've built makes truth questioning feel like betrayal. The complexity is the target. Caspar and Renault are Dante's most trusted generals, his architecture. The 2 men who have held his empire together through 3 territorial challenges, 2 regulatory investigations, and the particular chaos of the first year after Rennick died and the crown transferred. They are also the 2 men most likely to see through me if given enough time and enough motivation to look. I am not lying about that part. I am simply weaponizing it 4 weeks before they would have reached the conclusion on their own. I am excising the threat before the threat becomes one. And I am making him hold the blade. Caspar has been with me for 6 years. His voice carries the particular flatness of a man building a wall against something he doesn't want to hear. I know. I'm not saying he's disloyal to you. I pause. I let that distinction sit between us and breathe. I'm saying he doesn't think I'm good for you. That's his job to think. Is it? Another pause. Longer. Is it his job to make me feel unsafe every time I'm in the same building as his detail? The word, unsafe. I chose it over threatened, over watched, over a dozen other words that would have triggered his analytical mind instead of his instinct. Unsafe reaches him at a register below logic. It reaches the part of him that still stands in that window above the border road, and this time wants to do something different. He is very still. He made you feel unsafe. I don't know if it was intentional. I fold my hands in my lap. That's what worries me more. Because if it was intentional, it's a loyalty problem. And if it wasn't intentional, it's a judgment problem. Either way, in the taxonomy of a man like Dante Ferraro, it is a problem that requires resolution. I watch him sit with this. I watch the specific quality of his silence shift from defensive to deliberate, and I feel the moment his protective obsession tips past the fulcrum of reason. I'll talk to him. Dante, I'll handle it. Talking won't change what he thinks. The room holds still. Outside, rain. Inside, the low hum of a man dismantling something he built with his own hands, because I have convinced him, without ever once saying it directly, that it is the only way to prove he has changed. What are you asking me to do? I look at him with perfect calibrated steadiness. I'm asking you to decide who you're protecting. He removed Caspar first. Quietly, a reassignment to the northern border territories, framed as a promotion, executed within 48 hours of our conversation. Caspar accepted it. He was a professional. Professionals accept relocations when the alternative is the Alpha's displeasure. Renault lasted another week. He had the good sense, or perhaps the self-preservation, to request a voluntary leave of absence before Dante formalized the exile. Either way, he was gone. 2 chairs emptied at the table. 2 sets of eyes that might have seen me clearly, removed from the board. I noted this. I filed it under, Phase 4, progressing. But the generals were only the scaffolding. The actual structure of what I needed came 3 weeks later, on a Tuesday, when it rained the way it always rains in this city. Not dramatically, not cinematically, just gray and persistent, and indifferent to everything happening beneath it. Dante's penthouse. I sat across from him at the dining table with a glass of water and an expression I had rehearsed in front of a mirror until it carried zero visible calculation. Worried. Tender. The face of a woman in love with a man who is in danger and has finally decided to say the thing she's been afraid to say. There's something I need to tell you. He looked up from his phone, set it face down on the table, which he never does, which told me I had his undivided attention before I'd said the material thing. I've been contacted. Silence. By Vittoria's financial attorneys. A beat. They're building a case for contested asset ownership. I kept my voice even. If she files before you act, the PAC accounts, the territory deeds, the offshore routing, it all goes into litigation. It could take years. It could get very public. The color of his expression shifted. Not dramatically. Just a slight draining around the jaw. How do you know this? I have people. He accepted this the way he accepts most things I offer him now, without interrogation, because interrogating me would require acknowledging that he doesn't fully know who I am anymore. And that acknowledgement is a door he has decided, consciously or otherwise, not to open. A shadow account, I said. Sloane, listen to me. I reached across the table, my hand over his. The warmth deliberate, the eye contact unwavering. One account, offshore, biometric access, zero paper trail, completely outside Vittoria's legal reach. I let a pause run. We move the pack assets there now before her attorney's file. She gets nothing. He looked at me. For a long time he just looked at me. And I felt the weight of that look the way you feel a structure being tested, the slight, almost imperceptible flex of something under load. It would need to be in one name, he said slowly. Yes. Whose? I held his gaze. Mine. The word dropped into the room without apology, without decoration. Just the word, and the silence around it, and my hand still over his. Warm, steady, unmoving. Vittoria can't touch what belongs to me, I said quietly. It's protected outside the pack's legal framework entirely. I didn't say that last line. I let him say it, which he did. 4 seconds later, with the particular exhaustion of a man who has run out of reasons to resist something he wants desperately to believe in. And I trust you with it. I nodded, slowly, gravely, the nod of someone accepting a weight, not celebrating a victory. I'll set up the transfer protocols, I said. Tonight? Tonight. The accounts transferred in 11 minutes and 43 seconds. Bastion's financial architecture on the receiving end was flawless. 14 layers of offshore shell structures, each one a legitimate entity in a separate jurisdiction, each one pointing back ultimately to a single biometric signature. Mine. The pack's billions. The territory deeds, digitized and re-registered through a holding company I had incorporated in the syndicate's name 18 months ago. The harbor logistics contracts, the Eastern Corridor routing accounts, all of it, moved with the quiet, devastating efficiency of water, finding the lowest point in a room. Not dramatically, not cinematically, just transferred. The way power always actually moves, not in a single violent event, but in 100 small decisions made by a man who trusted the wrong thing more than he trusted himself. I sat in Bastion's secured office 3 days later and watched the confirmation screens settle. He stood behind me in his pitch-black suit, crimson tie, silver cufflinks, looking at the numbers the way he looks at most things, without sentiment. The generals? He asked. Gone. The accounts? Cleared and re-registered. The deeds? In my name. A pause. And Dante? I looked at the screens, at the clean, settled numbers, at the digital architecture of everything Dante Ferraro had spent 6 years building, now sitting in a structure that his name wasn't attached to anywhere. Not a single line. Not a single document. He called the pack assembly for Friday, I said. He's going to announce the divorce publicly. Bastion was quiet for a moment. He still believes you're running away with him. He believes a lot of things. Another pause. Are you ready? I stood up from the chair. I straightened the front of my coat, and I looked at Bastion, this cold, silver-haired, immortal man who had crouched over a dying girl on a border road and offered her not comfort but a transaction, and who had, in the process, given me something worth more than either. I've been ready, I said, for 5 years. 5 years. Friday arrived the way endings always do, quietly, through an ordinary morning, wearing nothing to mark itself as the day everything resolves. I woke before the alarm, lay still in the dark for 3 minutes, not from nerves, from the particular discipline of a woman who has learned that the most dangerous moment in any long operation is the final one. When the body wants to rush, when the blood starts moving faster, when the distance between you and the finish line compresses into something you can almost touch. Rushing is how you drop things. I did not rush. I showered in cold water. I dressed slowly. The black trench coat over the backless gown, exactly as I'd worn them the night I engineered my first meeting with Dante in the Verano hotel lobby. The symmetry was deliberate. I wanted to be wearing the same armor at the end that I'd worn at the beginning. I wanted to remember, in the room, who I was when I walked into this, and who I am now that I'm walking out. I looked at myself in the full-length mirror for exactly 4 seconds. Then I left. The gala hall is the same venue as the Callaway event. Dante has a preference for familiar geography when he wants to project control. The pack assembly is a different register than a gala. No chandeliers for decoration, no orchestral murmur of wealth lubricating itself. This is a working hall. Long black tables arranged in a formal council configuration, with the pack's senior members occupying the inner ring and the broader membership filling the outer rows. 400 people, maybe more. All of them summoned by their alpha's personal directive, which in pack protocol carries the weight of law. You do not decline a formal assembly summons. You do not arrive late. You do not speak until the alpha speaks first. I know all of this. I also know that by the time I walk through those doors, everything this room runs on will already belong to me. I arrived 12 minutes after the assembly's scheduled start, late enough to be noticed, not so late as to be disrespectful. Every head in the outer rows turns when the side entrance opens. I walk in wearing my coat and my ice blue gaze, and the specific quality of unhurried composure that Bastian spent 2 years drilling into me. The walk of someone who has already finished the math and is simply waiting for the room to catch up. At the front of the hall, Dante stands at the Alpha's address platform. He sees me come in. Something moves across his face. Relief, I think, and something warmer beneath it. He believes I'm here to watch him hand me a throne. I take a position near the east wall. I do not sit. I stand where I can see the full room, every exit, every face in the senior council ring, and the 2 heavy iron doors at the main entrance that Vittoria's remaining detail is currently bracketing from the outside. I note all of this in under 4 seconds. Then I settle, and I wait. Dante calls the room to attention with the particular cadence of a man who has presided over hundreds of these assemblies and finds power in the ritual of them. The room goes quiet. He speaks cleanly, formally. He outlines territorial stability. He references recent financial restructuring. My stomach registers a cold, quiet satisfaction at that particular phrase, and he thanks the senior council for their service. Standard scaffolding, every word of it designed to give the actual announcement the gravity of context, and then he gets to it. Effective tonight, he says. My marriage to Vittoria Rennick is formally dissolved. The room does not erupt. Pack assemblies don't work that way. What happens instead is a very particular quality of stillness, the held breath recalibration of 400 people simultaneously revising their understanding of the power structure they occupy. I watch the senior council ring. I watch the faces, calculating, careful. These are men and women who have survived multiple regime transitions by being precisely calibrated readers of which way the current is moving. They are reading it now, and what I see in their expressions is not loyalty to either Dante or Vittoria. What I see is the sharp, predatory attention of people waiting to learn who the new gravitational center is going to be. Good. That is exactly the room I need. Dante turns his head toward me, across the full length of the hall, across every recalibrating face. He looks at me with an expression that is half declaration and half plea. Come forward. The gesture is subtle, a slight extension of his hand toward the platform, an invitation. In pack protocol, it reads clearly, "This is the woman I'm naming. This is the one I've chosen." I hold my position against the east wall. I do not move. I watch his expression register the pause, then the confusion, then something just beginning to question itself at the edges. I let it run for 5 full seconds. 5 seconds is a very long time in a room waiting for resolution. Then I push off the wall, and I walk forward. The walk takes approximately 40 steps. I count them. Not from anxiety, from the same reason a surgeon counts, because precision is a practice, and practices hold even when everything else is in motion. The room watches me cross the floor. I feel it the way you feel a change in atmospheric pressure. Every gaze, a slight physical weight, the accumulated attention of 400 people recalibrating in real time. I stop 10 feet from the platform, not on it. Below it, Dante looks down at me with the amber warmth of a man who believes he is seconds from the culmination of everything he has wanted to reclaim. Sloane, her name in his mouth again. That specific wrecked register. Come up. I tilt my head slightly, and I say quietly, clearly, pitched to carry across the silence of the hall without effort, "Pull up the pack accounts, Dante." A beat. What? The accounts. I hold his gaze. Pull them up. He doesn't move for 2 seconds. Then the professional instinct in him, the years of operational precision, takes over, and he produces his phone, opens the secured financial interface, and looks at the screen. The color leaves his face the way color leaves something when the heat source is removed. Gradual. Complete. That's... He looks up. That's not possible. Pull the territory deeds. Sloane, pull them. His jaw tightens. He navigates to the deed registry. He looks at the screen. He looks at me. He looks at the screen again, as if the second viewing might produce a different result. It does not. The senior counsel will want confirmation, I say, with the measured steadiness of someone conducting a meeting. I'm happy to wait. The confirmation takes 7 minutes. 7 minutes of Dante working his phone with increasingly desperate speed, while the senior counsel ring produces their own devices and begins cross-referencing, and the outer rows begin the particular low-frequency murmur of 400 people trying to understand what they're witnessing. I stand in the same position for all 7 minutes. I don't pace. I don't check my phone. I don't look at anything except Dante's face, because his face is the document that matters. His face is the record of every decision he made, every trust he extended to the wrong architecture, every man he exiled, and every account he moved, and every moment he chose his obsession over his judgment. It's all there, in the 7 minutes of his unraveling. When he finally looks up from the phone, the warmth is gone from his expression completely. What's left is something raw, something I might, in a different life, have called grief. You took everything. His voice comes out at a different register than I've ever heard from him. Low, almost quiet. The voice of a man who has just understood the full scope of a thing he cannot reverse. The accounts, the deeds, the logistics contracts. He looks at me like he's trying to find the version of me that sat across from him at the dining table with her hand over his. All of it. Yes. When? Incrementally, I say. Over 3 months. The hall is very still now, not silent. There are still the low sounds of a room in shock, the specific acoustic quality of 400 people holding themselves back from the noise they want to make. But beneath that, still, the stillness of a room waiting for the geography of power to finish declaring itself. The generals, he says, gone because I put them there. The divorce, your decision entirely, I say. I never asked you to do that. That one costs him something visible, because it's true. I never once asked him to announce it publicly. I engineered the conditions that made him want to. There's a difference. And the difference is the thing he'll spend the rest of his life trying to locate. Why? The word comes out stripped of everything except the question itself. I look at him. For the first time in 3 months, I look at him without the calibration, without the performance, just directly. Because you stood in a window, I said, while they left me for dead on a border road. And then you spent 6 years building an empire on the territory they dragged me off of. The hall has gone to its deepest register of quiet now, every face turned toward the platform, every ear receiving this. Good. Let them hear it. Let every person in this room understand the full ledger of what was exchanged here. Dante's jaw works. Something moves through him that I recognize, not because I feel it now, but because I felt it once, at 20. In a kitchen waiting for a man to say the right thing. Sloane. The accounts are in my name, I say, cleanly, finally. The deeds are in my name. The crown passes to whoever holds the territory. I let a pause run. 1 beat, 2. That's me. The main door's open. I don't turn around. I don't need to. I know the sound of Vittoria's detail, 6 pairs of tactical boots on marble, precisely spaced, the professional rhythm of enforcers who have been given a directive and are executing it. I coordinated this with her 3 days ago. A single encrypted message through a channel Bastian provided. I didn't ask for her cooperation. I offered her an exchange. Dante's public humiliation, delivered in front of the full pack assembly, witnessed by every senior council member. He needs to legitimize a transition of power. In exchange for her detail handling the removal, her response came back in under an hour. 1 word. Agreed. Because Vittoria Rennick is many things, but above all she is a woman who understands the economy of a well-timed alliance. Dante hears the doors. He turns. He sees her detail moving up the center aisle in a clean, purposeful column. He turns back to me, and in his face I see the final calculation complete itself. The moment a man understands not just that he has lost, but the full dimensional scope of how thoroughly it was arranged. You planned this with her. I planned this, I said. She's a contractor. Something broke in his expression, the way ice breaks at the end of winter. Not a crack, but a settling, a giving way. A surface that was holding longer than it should have, finally releasing its tension. His knees hit the marble floor. He physically collapsed under the weight of it. The great Alpha Dante Ferraro completely shattered in front of his entire pack. Sloane, he begged, his voice cracking exactly the way it did against the penthouse glass. I walked to the edge of the platform and looked down at him, my ice-blue eyes perfectly cold. "I built you," I said, the words ringing out across the dead silent hall. "And now I'm cashing out." Vittoria's enforcers reached him. He fought back. Of course he did. He thrashed and snarled like a cornered animal, but stripped of his generals and his wealth, it was completely useless. They took him by the arms, dragging him backward across the marble. "Sloane!" he screamed, his voice tearing at the throat. The acoustics of the hall caught the absolute, in desperate agony of it as they dragged him toward the side exit leading to the grim underground holding levels. "Sloane!" Then the heavy iron doors slammed shut. Then silence. I stand in it for 3 full seconds. Then I turn to face the senior council ring. 400 people. Every face turned toward me with that precise, predatory attention I noted when I walked in. The attention of people waiting to learn which way the current is moving. I climbed the 3 steps to the Alpha's platform. I turn to face the room. I do not use his lectern. I stand beside it. My own geography. My own platform. The silence holds, and then from the senior council ring, one chair scrapes back. A man stands. He inclines his head. The gesture in pack protocol is unambiguous. Acknowledgement of authority. Another chair. Another. Then 2 more. Then the room begins to move, not chaotically, not in a rush, but with the particular inevitable momentum of a structure finding its new equilibrium. Row by row, chair by chair. The pack orients itself toward the new center of gravity, toward me. I look out at all of it, at the city glittering beyond the hall's high windows, rain-soaked and neon-lit, and exactly as Dante described it from a fire escape when we were young, and I believed every word he said. We're going to be up there one day. We are. I built you, and now I'm cashing out. The hall empties over the next hour, not all at once. The way water drains gradually by degrees until what's left is the residue of what happened here. Overturned water glasses on the council tables, a phone someone dropped in the commotion and didn't come back for. The echo of 400 people rearranging their understanding of who they answer to now. I stay on the platform until the last council member files out. I don't sit. I stand exactly where I stood when the room oriented itself toward me, and I let the silence of the emptied hall settle around me like something I've earned the right to wear. Outside, somewhere beneath this building, Dante Ferraro is in the kind of room he used to send other people to. Concrete, cold, no floor-to-ceiling glass, no city lights, no neon, just the particular arithmetic of consequence. I don't feel what I thought I would feel. I want to be honest with you about that. I thought there would be more, some large cinematic wave of completion, cresting and breaking over everything I'd carried for 5 years. There isn't. What there is instead is something quieter, something that feels less like triumph and more like exhale. The way your body releases a breath you didn't realize you were holding, the way a wound finally closes. Closed, I reach into the inner pocket of my coat and take out the burner phone. The same one I used in the penthouse 3 hours ago when I told someone on the other end to prepare the foreclosure. I look at it for a moment. Then I set it down on the Alpha's lectern. I won't need it anymore. I have better lines now. I walk down the 3 steps from the platform. I cross the black marble floor alone. My heels track the same 40 steps back toward the east wall exit, each one deliberate, each one landing exactly where I put it. At the door, I pause. I don't look back. There is nothing behind me that requires a second glance. But I want you to sit with this for a moment before I go. I want you to sit with the question that's been building since the first time you heard rain against penthouse glass and a man's voice cracking on the word empire. Did Dante Ferraro deserve what happened in that hall? I'm not going to answer that for you. That's yours to carry. Because some of you are going to say yes, that a man who stands in a window while someone he claims to love is beaten and left on a border road has already written his own ending. That the only question was always when and how thoroughly. And some of you are going to say the long con was too clean, too cold, that something was lost in the 5 years it took to build the armor required to do what I did tonight. That maybe the girl on the border road deserved better than becoming something that operates without warmth. Both of those things can be true at the same time. I've made my peace with that. The throne is mine, the city is mine, and the accounts, every last transferred, re-registered, forensically untraceable dollar of them, are mine. Drop a comment. Tell me where you land. Team Toxic Alpha or Team Apex Queen. Because I'll tell you this for free, the next hostile takeover is already in motion. The accounts have been cleared, the throne has been claimed, and I am just getting started. Hit subscribe and pledge your loyalty to the true architect of this city. I'll see you in the next chapter.